Let me ask you something. What if I told you that one of the most powerful and decisive secret weapons of World War II wasn't a bomb or a plane or a new kind of tank? What if it was something else, something ancient, a code so brilliant, so utterly perfect that it left the world's most skilled codebreakers completely and totally defeated? Well, this isn't some spy movie plot. It's a true story, and it's about how a language that was once suppressed, became the very key to victory.
Okay, so let's set the scene. It's March 1944. You're inside a top-secret Japanese naval intelligence listening post. The air is thick with smoke and tension, and at the center of it all is Commander Atsuzo Kurihara. He and his team are the best of the best. They've cracked Allied codes before, they've anticipated attacks, but for the last 18 hours, they've been staring at transcripts of a new American radio signal. And nothing. It's just noise, gibberish. It doesn't follow any known linguistic patterns. It's not a machine cipher. It is a complete and total mystery.
I mean, just listen to the raw frustration in that quote from Colonel Kunuma. We are fighting blind. Think about what that actually means for a military force. It means you have no idea where the next punch is coming from. You can't protect your ships, you can't position your troops, you can't intercept enemy movements. All your intelligence, all your planning, it's all useless. The Japanese military, which had been so confident, was suddenly stumbling around in the dark.
And believe me, they tried everything to break it. They threw their absolute top cryptanalysis at the problem. No luck. They brought in linguists from the best universities. Nothing. They even had Buddhist monks who specialized in ancient, obscure languages, listened to hundreds of hours of recordings. Still nothing. Their breaking point came when they captured a Navajo soldier named Joe Kiyomiya. They thought, aha, we've got it. We have the key. They played him the recordings, and he just shook his head. They tortured him for months, convinced he was lying. But he was telling the absolute truth. He could understand the language, sure, but the code layered on top of it, the military jargon, it was meaningless to him.
So what was this incredible, impenetrable code? What was this linguistic fortress that no one could breach? Well, the secret wasn't a newfangled cipher machine from Alan Turing's workshop. It wasn't some impossibly complex mathematical algorithm. The secret was the Navajo language itself. Diné Bizad, a language spoken almost nowhere else on Earth but in the American Southwest by the Navajo people.
Now, let's just nerd out for a second on why this language was the perfect choice. It's what's called a verb-centered language. That means a single verb can have so many prefixes and suffixes that it basically becomes an entire sentence in English. It's incredibly complex. But the real magic, the real wall of sound, comes from how it's spoken.
Just look at this comparison. It's like comparing apples and, well, something from another planet. Japanese has 5 simple vowel sounds, pretty standard. But Navajo, it has unique sounds or phonemes that don't really exist in other languages. It also has 4 distinct tones: high, low, rising, falling. So you could say the same word but change the pitch, and you've completely changed the meaning. For the Japanese listeners trying to even write this stuff down, it was impossible. It sounded like random static. It was a perfect sonic wall. So where did this brilliant idea come from? A man named Philip Johnston. He wasn't military. He was the son of a missionary who grew up in the Navajo Nation, played with Navajo kids, and spoke the language fluently. He knew how unique it was, and he pitched the idea to the Marine Corps. So in 1942, the first group of 29 young Navajo men were recruited. And here is the gut-punching irony of this whole story. Many of these men had been sent to government boarding schools, where they were punished, sometimes brutally, for speaking the exact same language their country was now begging them to use to save lives.
And they didn't just speak Navajo over the radio. That would have been too easy. No, they created a code within the language. They got creative. They used words that were part of their culture to describe the machinery of modern war. So a submarine, something they'd never seen, became beshlo, an iron fish. A huge battleship became loso, a whale. A bomber plane circling overhead, that was jay-sho, a buzzard. A fast little fighter plane, da-he-te-he-he, a hummingbird. It was poetic, logical, and to anyone on the outside, completely unbreakable.
You have to understand, for these men, this wasn't just a military task. As Chester Nez, one of the original 29, said, in their culture, words have real power. They can heal, they can create, they can destroy. So for them, transmitting a message with perfect accuracy wasn't just about following orders, it was a sacred responsibility. A mistake didn't just mean a failed mission, it could mean a desecration of their language and cost the lives of their brothers in arms.
All right, so how did this all play out on the front lines?
Well, the code got its first real test at Guadalcanal, and the impact was instant. Suddenly, American battlefield communications, which the Japanese had been listening in on, went totally dark. Commanders could now coordinate troop movements, call on artillery, and plan attacks with a speed and a level of security they had only dreamed of before.
But the real crucible, their defining moment, came at Iwo Jima, one of the most brutal, nightmarish battles of the entire war. In the first 48 hours of that invasion, with chaos all around them, with bullets flying and shells exploding, just 6 Navajo Code Talkers, working non-stop, sent and received more than 800 messages. And get this, not a single one had an error. Flawless.
So why was this so important? 2 words, speed and security. A code talker could take a message, translate it in his head, send it, and have it understood on the other end in about 20 seconds. The standard encryption machines at the time, these clunky mechanical devices, took about 30 minutes to encode, transmit, and then decode a message. On a battlefield, 29.5 minutes isn't just a long time, it's an eternity. It is literally the difference between life and death.
And don't just take my word for it, this is the ultimate proof. This is Major Howard Connor, the signal officer for the entire 5th Marine Division at Iwo Jima, the guy in charge of all communications. He said it plain as day. Were it not for the Navajos, the Marines would never have taken Iwo Jima. That's not a historian looking back. That's a direct quote from the man on the ground who saw it with his own eyes.
But this incredible story doesn't end with ticker tape parades. After the war was won, the story takes a quiet, tragic turn. The code was so valuable, so perfect, that the military decided to keep it a secret, just in case they needed it for the Cold War. The Code Talkers were all ordered, under threat of treason, to never, ever talk about what they did. They returned home as heroes, but they couldn't tell anyone why.
So just think about that injustice for a second. These men came home, carrying the invisible wounds of war, and couldn't even tell their wives or their parents about their incredible contribution. They returned to a country that, in some states, still wouldn't let them vote. They faced racism and discrimination. They couldn't get the same services as other veterans. And to heal from the trauma of combat, they had to turn to their own traditional Navajo ceremonies, because the country they fought for offered them nothing but silence.
Their story finally came to light when the program was declassified in 1968, more than 2 decades after the war ended. And recognition, while slow, did come. The big moment was in 2001 when President George W. Bush awarded the original 29 Code Talkers the Congressional Gold Medal. The language that was once forbidden in schools was now, officially, a national treasure. So when you take all this in, when you look at this entire incredible story, it really makes you ask a fundamental question. After all the technology, all the spy games, all the brilliant minds working on codes, what is this country's greatest, most unbreakable form of encryption?
It isn't a machine. It's not an algorithm. The secret weapon was diversity.
It was the unique richness and complexity of a culture that had been overlooked and marginalized.
And in the end, it all came down to people. A few hundred young men who brought a unique strength from their heritage that no enemy could ever anticipate and no machine could ever replicate.
And that's the real payoff, the final message. As Code Talker Peter McDonald put it so perfectly, they showed that America's true strength comes from its diversity. The Japanese military was ready for American technology. They weren't ready for its people. The Code Talkers sent a message the enemy could never break, but their legacy sends a message to all of us today. Our differences are not our weaknesses. They are, and they always will be, our greatest strength, our most unbreakable code.